A keen esoteric teacher will tell you this is the on a low key subtle level, the brain is being engineered in ways we can't even like necessarily understand because it's not being taught to us. And how it's being engineered is what we block or what we don't block, what we somehow forget or not forget, and different reasons of forgetting, obvious, and maybe and different intenders for us to remember, because we don't even know how the brain necessarily responds as our unique selves from a different esoteric quote unquote agendas end quote, because it's kind of like the the clues could be hidden in plain sight if the teachers tell us how to look, you know. So because it's like, you know, chemtrails is one rough example. All this like fake narrative lies, that's a different example. Or not even just that, you know, just like, you know, subliminal programming in a modern time, right? And that subliminal programming is it's just like the whole collection of like, you know, promoting not healthy diets, promoting pharmaceutical drugs that have chemicals we don't even know, and standardly, and that being the particular outdate, you know. But that's not good or bad, because some collective intention of a masses, they're entrained for that shit, you know. So the whole particular deconditioning is the particular like the de-entrainment, right? Because we're entrained to like just have certain key habits that don't that that we're in a particular time to actually change that, you know. So so it we don't even know it though. That's the thing. Like, so we really got to like kind of find our own settling, our own relaxation, because if we don't find that, then somehow you're just doing a shadow projection based on some type of desire or need, or some type of want that is just yours and no one else's. Because for me to be keen like that, that's just like, I don't even that's like, dude, that's just a miracle with the predecessors, because some type of constructive predecessors are preserving this. So that's the essence of the miracles, because there's a foundation for the miracles to fucking happen, and there's just a foundation to life in general. So that foundation, we're taking that shit for granted, and that might be God, you know? So like for us to shit on God, that's just our own immature, silly ass shit, you know? Respectively. And I get how people's egos are people's egos, you know? But like for me to say this, I'm in the red room, mind you. It's like it's so underrated, because we're taking like everything for granted, and that's like, in the eyes of the, like, you know, the adepts passing down different information, it's foolish to take shit like this for granted. And I'm not trying to scare anybody. This is me living through life, the fucking reality of life, and seeing like the fucking the risks that are there, you know, the quote unquote tricks that are there, end quote. And I'm just saying it from intuition as well, because it's not obvious to the common person that the brain is being quote unquote engineered, end quote. And it's being engineered by a surface level narrative. And the narrative is hyping up certain messages to like follow up on not healthy diets, and pharmaceutical drugs, and not questioning chemtrails, and just being in that whole program. And from that whole particular program, other shit comes in that, you know, that whole program of that shit, it ironically leans on other programs of order, such as the fucking guidelines and this fucking organization, and that whole fucking shit leans on a whole different fucking energy. So it's like that's why quote unquote some demons end quote could be confused, because they're not seeing how the evil and the good are working together, you know, in ways that, for whatever subjective reason they have, they forgot that, you know, because they're just on their own unique path, not good, not bad. But that doesn't mean there's like still like going towards like a particular external route that's unique to us. So the thing that's not obvious here is the brain engineering. And I'm not trying to scare anybody with that, but the brain is being engineered in a way to either tailor to go and work on outdated, distorted habits, perhaps, or not, or maybe some type of casual, clean, fresh, intuitive update that's not just deconstructive and destructive, it's constructive and helpful. So as it's constructive and helpful, that's the thing that's foreign to us. That's like the other side of conditioning, because conditioning is conditioning, and we're doing a particular deconditioning with respects to any fucking group and tradition. And you could decondition, you don't need a particular, just one system to quote unquote decondition, right? End quote. But anyways, we're deconditioning ourselves out of particularly out of just like the past ages of time, because those past ages of time, that was a whole different working of time. And now we're seeing the end of it, you know. Now the brain is engineered to like either be entrained to like just focus on like the old way, or the brain is being newly reprogrammed respectively to actually be truthful and balanced, and not saying it in just like a polarized, you know, type of way, you know, not just saying it like that, you know, like, oh, that's gay, you know, like, you know, it's more energetic than, you know, confused fucking perspectives and confused psychology. Because the thing that's getting deconditioned is how not to have the brain engineer to some fake ass shit. How not to have the brain engineered to be engineered to some fake ass energy shit, you know? Because look at the programs that we're in. Those programs are ultimately leading you up to have a bad diet, right? Shit like that. Have bad pharmaceutical drugs. And then that just being a certain staple to how it affects the brain and the psychology, and how it affects the brain is just the start to control the individual, you know. But for us to have the simple option to do something else, that is the subtle miracle. And for us to just shit on that, that like, it's just preposterous, you know. It's just like that's what 3D is, just appalling. It really, sometimes it is, because it's like there's there's probably millions of examples. Like, God, how could you do this shit? Well, that's what the 3D is. It's allowing that experiment, and we're coming to see what this experiment is about, and we are following up on the experiment, and we are on our own individual subjective life path. And within that life path, sometimes those moments of like, God, how could you have done this to me? Sometimes you could experience those moments, but how do we explain those moments? Like, well, it's the accountability part, you know. It's like us seeing like we're our own individual. And as we're our own individual, sometimes the individual is psychologically weak, where it has to lean upon other parties and organizations of mental conformity, because it doesn't know how to fucking think for itself, most respectively. And that's just what it is. And as it's doing that, it's like it's kind of like it's just out of tune with the whole different truth, you know. There's a different point that wanted to come out, but just to bring it back to the start of it, is the brain is being engineered, and if someone's conforming to other people's shit, they don't even know why they're doing it. They lost their own why respectively, and as they lost their own why to their own shit, then then they're just totally oblivious and unconscious to how their brain is evolving towards a narrative they know nothing about, respectively. Because what is obvious isn't so obvious, you know? The brain is being engineered, and there's a choice point, respectively, in this threshold where are you gonna like just I don't know, are you just gonna like completely like blind your intuition? And as you blind your intuition, we don't know the like the cost of that. So to bring it to some more ground here, obviously, the main topic of this conversation is the brain is being engineered in certain ways, and we don't know it, right? How is it being engineered in certain ways? Well, just the basic mechanism of the brain's organic evolution, it will adapt in such ways where it's just naturally engineered without the surface level realities or the tech. But the surface level realities and the tech, they could obviously engineer it in a more unique way per the human living in these like, you know, quote unquote these plane fronts of life and death. So the brain is being engineered. So there's many different things that are contributing to the brain being engineered. Different types of agendas, different types of interactions, different types of like feels of choice points, and then different type of like quote unquote spiritual you know, I guess interactions in the dream time or more. If you have reached that lucid state, hats off to you. But we're all growing from, you know, a certain base level, and that base level, it's unique and subjective to you within this ever-changing 3D time that is kind of like the 3D itself is quote unquote potentially braiding itself to like, you know, the different dimensions, right, respectively. And collectively it's more so doing that, but maybe that collective, you know, ideology right there, that could have a bifurcation splitting of a timeline. That could, a whole new shadow could be being made of the timeline of the quote unquote light. That timeline of light, it's making a new shadow because whatever casts light casts shadow. Shout out to the predecessors. And as that's doing that, that shadow isn't at first, that shadow isn't good or bad. It's what we do with it, obviously. So it's not that I'm not even demonizing demons. Obviously, we've already been over this shit. You know, the quote unquote word demons, end quote. That's obviously like, it's obviously like a context thing. Like no shit, you know. But we're not necessarily like recognizing that. And for me to say it, that's actually like saving grace for a lot of quote unquote, you just using a word, end quote, that could mean different things, you know, because I'm not demonizing demons, end quote, because we have different understandings of what that means, you know. I look at it as more so energy, and then I guess different iterations of it looks at it as a like an identity, right? Which, and that identity could go towards a certain level of external or not, you know, or a certain level towards God, respectively, or not. And within that, all of us have a different choice point within our life stream of how the choices we make, it contributes to how our brain will get engineered. Because I'm not demonizing this. It's not good or bad. The brain is getting engineered, but on the surface level, how the brain is getting engineered is by the collective narrative, and how that collective narrative is entraining certain collective beings to do a certain behavior within the society, and how they're just feeling what they're feeling, and that's creating their own collective moon energy, and different spirits are just there, you know. And then like, you know, different levels of spirit, and somehow fucking God's there, you know, because God is everywhere, right? But he's like but like in the Vedanta, they're saying God is everywhere, but God is hidden. They're saying that, you know, if you like find the particular scriptures for that. So within all of that, God has always, like, it seems like Vedanta is saying God has always been helping us, but letting us like be our own self, somehow. And like but there is consequences to shit we do, that's what that's like Vedanta could be saying that in a different way, respectively to like us newly coming into this new day, right? So when I'm speaking about brain engineering, I'm not there's a disclaimer. I'm not talking about how you guys are talking about it. I'm not talking about it like people are doing this with that and this with that. I'm not talking about it. I'm just talking about it from the esoteric level, dude. So for someone to like, throw their confused stone at me, you're just kind of like, it's like you're kind of like esoterically blind or something. Because when energetically, this is obviously like an energy thing, but like for some reason when like someone is quote unquote blind end quote, they don't know where they're going, and if you don't know where you're going but you think you know where you're going, then what does that mean? I don't know, you tell me type of shit. So the brain is getting engineered, and as the brain is getting engineered, somehow some group of quote unquote benevolent predecessors end quote have preserved some shit for us so we could fucking take the higher route, right? A higher route. So the brain is getting engineered. So this is an epic red room, and I got special effects in here. Cool. But the brain is getting engineered. Shout out to the predecessors. And as the brain is getting engineered, for some reason, this threshold of a time, space, opportunity, the stuff that we're seeing and receiving is exclusive to this period of time, respectively. Because in this period of time, all the creations came from this region of time, right? So as it came from that, it's like we're just kind of, I'm trying to myself like we're lucky to be alive, But within our like, it's not just about like gratitude and that. It's actually about like certain intelligence, because for us to sustain our gratitude, we have to pass like the confused fuckery challenges. If we don't see through those fuckery challenges, then somehow we would be working through that shit, And obviously that's like trying to stop complaining is to like overcome, right? So within all of that shit, bruh, we're always going to experience a brain engineering. The way I'm bringing up brain engineering is not like I'm not trying to say it's bad or good. I'm trying to say like somehow the brain is being engineered. And there was a different subject title I kind of mentioned like a couple minutes ago, and I'm going to have to replay this video obviously. Oh, the higher routes. Getting the opportunities to take the higher routes, a higher route, obviously. And shout out to like everyone doing the like quote unquote good work. Obviously, like the predecessors had a point with sharing, and low key, we're like the product of some predecessors that have shared. So if the predecessors shared some stuff, they had to intend a certain quote unquote mission message, end quote. And that mission message, quote unquote, end quote, it could say like there is quote unquote deception out there, end quote, and there's real different level truth that enriches the life itself. Thank you very much.